Casablanca solution to accuracy in reporting.
Welcome back to The Deep Cut on RFN. I'm Terrance Smits. Roger Ebert once defined a classic as a film you can't live without seeing. Casablanca is certainly that. The beloved 1942 film told the tale of a reignited relationship set in the midst of a great exodus. It was a suspense, a romance, a dramatic, and an action film all rolled into one. The masterpiece is in the news presently because it's all set to get the premium channel treatment, as Showtime has a 12-episode Casablanca series prepped to begin filming. We have with us today the creative force behind the new series, producers and showrunners Chris Dysart and J.T. Snyder. Chris Dysart is a novelist, a screenwriter, best known for his book Take That Subculture and his 2004 film The Opportunist. His collaborator, our second guest today, is J.T. Snyder. J.T., helped out with things on Dysart's movie, and he has worked on a few other sets in perhaps a less esteemed capacity. JT's father, as it happens, is renowned Merrill Lynch power player Tight Lou Snyder. Chris, JT, welcome to the show.
So happy to be here, Terrance.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure and it's an honor.
Now, JT, I drew a blank just now mentioning your film credits, and I'd hate to neglect giving you your proper due. Would you mind please mentioning for the audience maybe a work of yours they'd be familiar with?
I've been a part of a lot of various productions. If you look at photographs, you'll probably see me in the background. I'm always around.
Let me handle this one for you. One
Sure.
second, JT.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the things that JT is incredibly valuable to me. I mean, what he does as a collaborator, that ultimately JT's the collaborator in Hollywood right now.
Right.
But we're not here to talk about JT or here to talk about me. We're really here to talk about this excellent opportunity we have to bring some new life to the Casablanca franchise.
Exactly.
Now, I'll be honest. When I found out that you two would be promoting this Casablanca show right here on RFN, I petitioned to the president to conduct this interview because there may be no bigger admirer of Casablanca than me, and I think it will just be a delight to discuss it with people who so obviously share my reverence for the film. Chris, give us just a broad idea of what it is that you're executing here. Is this a shot-for-shot remake? What have we got going on?
That's a really good question. It's not a remake.
Yeah.
One
Not
of the things it's really important to understand is that this is functions as a sequel in many ways, and it functions as a prequel. And I'll get into a moment why I say a prequel because, because it picks up in before Casablanca. Who are these people? Where were they? How did they meet originally? And and one of the things we wanted to do is kind of do a sort of a soft reboot for modern era, for the modern times. So what we're going to have is a whole new set of characters who function as an analog to the original characters. So imagine seeing Rick, but in a whole new light. Imagine seeing Ilsa, but in a whole new light. But of course it is going to connect, and it is going to acknowledge that there was a Rick Berman, there was an Ilsa.
Oh, this sounds very interesting indeed. Now, the film Casablanca successfully blended such broad themes as love, jealousy, regret, redemption, patriotism, friendship. What themes does this new iteration tackle? And do you think that you'll be able to integrate those new themes as ably as the original did with its themes?
Well, it's so funny you're saying that. It really it's a various themes. One of the themes is dealing with.
You mind if I handle this one real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It's going to have all the themes you just mentioned.
Yeah, all of them.
All right. Are there any new themes? Are we sticking with the old trusted standbys?
For the most part, we are. again, you have to understand that what we're doing here is a modern take on Casablanca. We're trying to bring this into the modern era, and I'll give you some examples. You probably didn't know this, but I think this is going to be exclusive with you. Brie Larson is going to be taking the role of the analog for the Rick character, who's going to be the descendant of Rick, who's going to have the name Casablanca Blaine. And she's going to kind of step into that Rick role, kind of, that roguish character, of course named after the Rick's establishment, Rick's club,
the bar.
Casablanca, I think maybe you mean the city that the original was.
Correct.
Is that okay? That's very interesting. So Rick's do we get to see an older Rick perhaps, and maybe whoever Casablanca Blaine's mother is, an older.
Casablanca's mother is going to be Ilsa. We wanted to kind of tie that all in. Casablanca is the descendant, the direct sis. I mean, it's their daughter. So she's we kind of carry the story.
I think what he's trying to say is that there's so much story to tell, and we were able to bring some of those elements. When we sat down and we watched Casablanca together, we remember the first thing that came to our mind is what happens next. And I feel that a lot of the fans of this franchise are going to feel the same way. We want to know how did the stories unfold. Where is Strasser today?
Well, it's so funny you mentioned that. You're jumping a little bit ahead, but Strasser is another character that we're going to see in this take. I mean, he's a much older man. He's obviously has a jaded past, being that he was part of a very the whole Nazi situation. But his
may I stop you there, please, for a moment, fellas? So in your reimagining, Rick and Elsa get together at the end of the film.
Yes, obviously.
That's correct. I think that was really implied by Casablanca. We want to be faithful to the original, and when you look at Casablanca, I mean, that's just a classic love. How could you not see them together? So at some point in the past, and we'll fill in the blanks in the miniseries. It is a 12 episode miniseries that's going to be coming on Showtime, and of the same name, Casablanca. We should have said that in the beginning, but I mean, Ilsa, Rick, they come together, and we're now going to see that same story or a similar story kind of unfold. It's kind of poetry, and it's going to unfold, again for their descendants. So you're going to have Casablanca, who as being played by the one Brie Larson, and her love interest, who is going to be played by Michelle Rodriguez, and she's going to be playing Ileana. And yes, there's going to be some new themes. So when you add some new themes, we're going to start talking about some modern themes like the LGBT and some of the issues that they have to deal with, and I think that brings more meat into the story and brings and just another angle that way the audience isn't seeing the same old rehash.
Back to Strasser. Now, in the original...
Sorry to interrupt you. Just to kind of play on words, and in that way, you get these little Easter eggs as a fan. The character, the Mexican, she'll be a Mexican immigrant.
Casablanca?
No. Casablanca is going to be played by Brie Larson, but the love interest, instead of Ilsa, it'll be Ileana, right? So it's a play on words. It's so she's Hispanic. Do you understand? So she's going to be on the Mexican border, and a lot of it's going to be taking place around detention centers, and so that way we can kind of speak to, in the same way that Casablanca did in 1942, speak to some of the turbulent times.
That's a very unique creative role you've hopped into there. Now, Major Strasser died at the end of Casablanca. Am I wrong in that?
One of the things we wanted to do is we didn't want to be contrived, so we were able to bring just some of the essential characters back, the characters that we knew it made sense
Yeah, absolutely. I
JT,
agree. We
would
wanted to
you-
make sure that we bring the characters that it made sense for the story. We just didn't want to bring back certain staples just to say that we brought back certain staples.
We were able to, I think, reasonably bring Strasser and his grandson Adolf Strasser, who serves as the ICE agent and for the majority of the series serves as the what's the word? He's
Antagonist?
correct. He's going to be sort of a foil to the Casablanca character, which Ileana, that the character Michelle Rodriguez is going to be playing, is she's going to be on the run, and he's going to be coming in and out of the scene. Of course, we're going to have a set piece similar to the original Casablanca, which is going to be take place in New York. Because remember, one of the things we want to do is we wanted to update it for a more modern take. So that's why this is going to be sort of a New York set. It's going to be set in many locations, south of the border being one of them. But at some point, it does take place at a club in New York with the same name, Casablanca. I'm sure you get the reference. And, she will be the nightclub owner. And so that way we can have a lot of the set pieces that we had in the original, the original in this franchise.
Now, is this you're not? How did you characterize again what it is that you're doing with the show?
Well, I would say that this is a prequel, sequel, soft reboot, right? So because we're going to be pulling elements from the play. Right, so there are going to be. I don't want to say it's a direct sequel to the actual movie. The movie was based on that play. We figured that we'd bring those elements in, and that's why it's a soft reboot, hoping to update it for a more modern take. I mean, clearly, let's be honest. Rick is a little too old to be having a teenage daughter in 2019. So that's the way we kind of filled some of the gaps here.
Now, as my understanding is, the play that Casablanca, the film, was based on was never produced. Have you secured the rights to that? Have you read that?
It's so funny that you mentioned that. I would say that the play kind of functions much like my career.
Yeah, that's a good point that you have, JT.
Non-existent.
We wanted to bring everything together, and we wanted to be able to say that how can we bring as much authenticism. Authentication?
Authority.
Authenticity, that's it, into this project. And we were just surprised that when we sat down with Showtime that they really understood what we were saying.
Absolutely. We looked at them, we said, so you're really doing this? You're going to go for a Casablanca soft reboot prequel sequel?
And Showtime said, look,
shocked.
we kind of explained to them the merchandising opportunities there, and I think Showtime really saw the artistry that can come out of this.
They understood.
Now, let's see. Yeah, Louis was such a fun character, and really turned out to be far more than he appeared. How will Louis relate to the main characters, whoever they may be, this go around, and what does he do for a living?
And
That's
the thing
a great
is,
question, and I'll take this one, JT.
Okay.
Louis is one of the fan favorites, and we understand, but when we look at this gritty take, this New York backdrop, we just couldn't see how Louis could fit into this story this time around. So one of the things, unfortunately, is that Louis would be we would get to see allusions to Louis. He is in there's a surprise actor who's going to play the role of Louis, a much older Louis, obviously, who will be executed on the border, and that's going to be the connection. Is that Louis actually knows Ileana, and was the one smuggling her in, and unfortunately, it cost him his life. He'll be lined up in a firing squad and shot down by one of the ICE agents.
The ICE agents are shooting smugglers on the border, execution style?
Right. We wanted to really reflect kind of...
Is this a dystopian type future? Or?
No.
No, I would say, I think me and JT, when we looked at each other, we said, look, we want to make sure that we capture a lot of realism in the same way that Casablanca, the original Casablanca the first installment in this franchise was able to kind of capture what was going on at the time, but speak on a tender love story. And we want to do that and speak on a tender LGBT story.
Now, you said that there are certain analogs. Now, like I said, Louis was such a loved character. He brought some levity to the film. Will there be an analog for Louis, if not Louis himself?
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that. It's not that there's an analog for Louis, right? So you have Louis, and then we will be having Louis's grandson.
Ah, okay, excellent.
He's going to have much of the same wit and charm that Louis had in the original. But like I said, he'll be riding shotgun with his grandfather, and he also will be executed.
We just
in the
couldn't.
first episode.
We just couldn't fit them in. We just couldn't find a place for them in this iteration of Casablanca.
Two-part question here. Who will be your Sidney Greenstreet, or your Peter Lorre?
I'm sorry, Sidney Greenstreet. Could you give us a little background?
Yeah.
Sidney Greenstreet was Signor Ferrari. He was in many bogey films. He was also in, A Maltese Falcon. Signor Ferrari. He was he was the black market fellow. He took over Rick's Cafe after Rick left. Peter Lorre had the Letters of Transit.
Oh, Sidney Greenstreet. I see it here. Yeah, he's dead. I mean, he's an old man. He was what? This was back in the day. So he's
All
dead.
right, so he's simply not taken into account.
Well, I mean, we'll have some callbacks. There's going to be, and listen. I just want to say, for a lot of the fans out there, there's going to be so many Easter eggs. There's going to be so much love that's going to go into this. There's going to be so many callbacks. So expect to see something relating to Sidney Greenstreet.
Final question for you, and the final scene is probably the most indelible in all of film. Describe to me in detail how this scene, the final scene in the classic film, played out, and how your fresh take on this scene will respect it.
I'm so glad that you asked. So, as the showrunners between me and Chris, we wanted to make sure that we were able to bring in a lot of the same tropes, a lot of the same imagery. Although this isn't in black and white, it is a color. In fact, we do have a la Wizard of Oz kind of that transition, so that the audience doesn't feel such a jarring effect that, wait a minute, Humphrey Bogart's in black and white, but his daughter is in color. So we have the slow fade to color, and but a lot of the tropes are there. So one of the most famous scenes, my favorite scene in Casablanca would be the scene at the airport. I mean, we all know it, and we're gonna have an airport scene, and we're gonna have some airplanes flying overhead. And we're gonna have some of the classic lines. Just think about it. We're gonna say, "Hey, here's looking at you, kitty," And
I think what JT is trying to say is that
of all the bars in the world,
we haven't forgot about the fans. The only reason we kind of came together and decided to take this property and make it into a franchise, and subsequently get a piece of the merchandising rights, is because we knew that the fans were clamoring to find out what happened to Ilsa, and at the same time see the new characters unfold and just go back into that world, and that's what we were trying to achieve, and I think we did it. I think we've mastered it. We're currently in post production. We're wrapping up, and we're looking forward to have you guys.
All right. The Chris Dysart and J.T. Snyder. The show is Casablanca. It will be on Showtime in the coming spring. There's probably a segment of society who's really eager for this, and we'll hear from them. This has been The Deep Cut on RFN. Thanks for listening. I'm Terrance Smits. Seems like what we had to do is know anymore. Flashback past the present. I'm sure there's some music and some explosions. Jingle, Strauss, who is this person? Adolf what? An ICE agent now that we have gunning down on the border? That's legal gunning downs on the border. It's not supposed to be a dystopian future. This is how things actually are. The man had no idea who Sidney Greenstreet was. No idea who Peter Lorre is. These people ruining what I've loved my entire